But first, our top story takes us back to Nikola, which of course has been in the news a lot for us here on FreightWaves, where the company was given a second delisting warning from the NASDAQ. And with the reaction, we've got Alan Adler here to talk about what's going on with the company. Alan, I know your headline says it's not time for them to panic, but after two delisting warnings, you've got to wonder, what is their plan going forward for 2024?
Well, Kaylee, this was expected. They've been trailing the $1 benchmark, for the NASDAQ since I think November. And so they were going to get this delisting notice. Honestly, they've got so many issues to work through that this one just doesn't really, make the top five for them, as Steve Gursky, the CEO, put it. It's something that, they'll deal with when and if they have to, but they have 180 days before anything's going to happen anyway. The idea that the typical approach is to do a reverse stock split. That is basically issue one new share of stock for a multiple of your existing shares, 20 or 30, one for 20, one for 30 is pretty common. What that does is it artificially props up your stock price, gets it above $1, and that sort of thing. And arguably that sort of takes care of the issue, but it really doesn't, because if there's nothing really positive, there's no positive movement or anything really happening at a company, and you do that, NASDAQ's not going to be fooled by that. So the idea of rushing out and doing this reverse stock split is not a good option for Nikola. They're not considering it right this minute. Now it could come up at the board at any time. There may be a push to do it, but it's just not going to be something that they're really going to worry about. I think what they're trying to do is get more fuel cell electric trucks into the market. We've reported in this story that they have an order for 50 of them from IMC, which is a big drayage hauler. That was reported by a hydrogen website. And they did deliver 35 of the trucks in the fourth quarter. And these the price on them is about $450,000 before you get into the incentive business. We won't talk about that here. But basically, Steve Gursky's intent, I think, is to try to drive the business into more positive revenue, show that there is actually progress being made. Then if you need to do a reverse split, you could do it.
So, Alan, some of those other bigger fish to fry, of course, we still have kind of the overarching cloud of the recalls that were going on with Nikola and their battery packs at the end of last year. Is that something that they're continuing to focus on more as well? And is it continuing to be a drag on some of their profitability as they work through those issues?
Well, I think the biggest drag is you've got a whole bunch, a couple hundred batteries that have been taken out of these trucks. They're sitting out in the desert right now. We had a picture of that off of YouTube a couple of weeks ago. I think the recall is interesting. I caught up with Steve Gursky at CES last week, and he's still not ready to say what they're going to do about replacement batteries. It looks like it'll probably be a dual source situation. Hard to know. I mean, we need to find out, for example, Proterra, which is in bankruptcy and sold off its battery assets, its business to Volvo Truck. Is Volvo going to honor those contracts? And if so, then presumably they'll be fine on the fuel cell side. But there's a whole question of where do you get batteries to replace, the ones that were taken out of the battery electric trucks. That's 200 plus trucks they've got to deal with. And Gursky says, we'll be in the market with two products, meaning fuel cell and battery electric trucks by this time next year. So we'll see about that. But right now, they still have interest in their battery electric truck. The question is, who's going to put the batteries in? And we don't know that yet.
So also that question is, of course, who's looking to purchase those battery electrics as well? Is there any type of indication on who those focused buyers are for the battery electric, or do we see that their fuel cell is getting more attention?
Well, I think they're trying to drive business to the fuel cell because they have a first mover advantage there. Lots of people, legacy truck makers, of course, have done, reasonably well. I think Daimler said they sold worldwide more than 3,400 battery electric trucks last year. So that's a lot. And, Nikola, I think, wants to get back into the battery electric business simply because they can do it on the same line. There's very few changes to the truck that have to be made in terms of, power sourcing and that sort of thing. So the idea is, let's get back in and have both products out there. There is interest. They actually have some orders for the battery electric truck when they can make them. But when I talked to like Salim Yusufadov at Watt EV, which had 14 Nikola trucks, just talked to him the other day, and I said, "What's happening?" He said, "They really haven't told us when we're going to get them back." And he said, obviously it's a frustration for us because we can't use them if we don't have them. And he was reluctant about turning them in. He hadn't had any problems with them or anything, but Nikola said, no, you need to send them back to us. And Nikola is making the payments on the trucks right now. So it's a bit of a financial drain for them in addition to, the actual cost of the recall, which is, north of $60 million in money they arguably, could be put to better use.
So, Alan, let's talk about consequences on if they can't get their ducks in a row by the end of that 180 days. If they do end up being delisted from the NASDAQ, what does that look like to a blow either to company morale or to faith in the company or just in general? Does it really put a drag now there on their profitability and their ability to perform?
If you're a public company and you cannot trade on one of the major exchanges, be it the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, you go to what's called the pink sheets or the over-the-counter trading. And the trading that happens there does not get very much attention. It's almost probably better to just take the company private at that point. We saw Too Simple do that very recently. Now they're leaving the U.S. market, and they saw no point in staying on the public markets, even though they were the first of the autonomous truck companies to go that way. So there's other options that can be taken. I think the whole question of Nikola's survivability and viability is still very much out there. Again, I don't think we want to hyper focus on the listing question. It's one of the things they have to deal with. But right now, the company, is hopeful about momentum. I mean, we'll see. They're still here, and we know how many people have predicted their demise over the last few years. So I guess we're still in that sort of wait and see period. But I think that the delisting, again, not a normal kind of thing, something that would probably devastate some companies. But in this case, with all the grief that Nikola's gone through, this is just one more thing.
So, Alan, you mentioned that interview with Steve Gursky from CES, and you've got some really great bonus content that's doing pretty well on our YouTube channel from that. For folks who want to take a look at that bonus content and maybe get some more out of you, where can they go to do that?
Well, you can always go to our YouTube channel on FreightWaves. The Truck Tech podcast is there. Last week, what did we do last week? I can't remember. I guess we did Kodiak Robotics and their new truck out of CES. This week we'll have Aurora Innovation on the podcast. You can get there by going to the YouTube channel, looking under shows, and then hit Truck Tech, and there will be a whole playlist there. Using the bonus content in the newsletters is something we're able to do now, and we're doing it as much as we can. But it's embedded within the newsletter. And newsletter itself is Truck Tech. Go to our website or sign up for it, and we can make that work.
All right, Alan, thank you for that, and we will see you on Wednesdays here on FreightWaves Now, and we'll catch you on Wednesday for Truck Tech as well.
Thanks. See you later.